In this episode, we're going to show you how we painted the landforms on the Jurassic Park Danger Project. So sit back and enjoy, because I'm Pete, and this is Board Game Refab. Last time we showed you how we created the landforms for the Jurassic Park board, and this time I'm going to show you how I painted it. There's some mistakes made and some lessons learned that we'll share with you along the way. So without further ado, let's get painting. Painting is one of my favorite steps since it really starts to bring all the previous construction together. You really have to use some imagination with how the end product will look until that paint is applied. I used the airbrush for most of the paint on this project, and as you can see here to start, I'm priming the cliffs with black to give a good base for the shadows. This is an easy way to create depth when you have some texture to paint over. I received my airbrush as a gift only days before I started this project. Thanks, Mom and Dad. So forgive some of those rookie mistakes. I learned a lot through this process and hopefully we'll get better going on. I wasn't sure how I was going to finish the edges of the border or whether or not the inside edges would even be seen. So I shot some black all over the sides and bottoms. I figured there wasn't really any harm to doing this now, and since I did it at this early stage, there wasn't any masking needed. You'll see later that I skipped a step on the tiles and wound up covering up the outside edges that I painted black. But really, no harm, no foul. I chose brown to be the main base coat for obvious reasons. Funny thing is that I debated a lot about what shade of brown to use, and in the end, it really didn't matter one little bit. The main idea is that we're covering everything with paint so that the ground cover will adhere evenly to everything. Now, since there was a significant amount of black overspray from the cliffs, special attention needed to be paid when trying to cover that back up. Just be sure to use a lot of thin coats and build up the paint slowly. Now, I had significantly more black overspray on the tiles than I did on the border, and I honestly think I was just moving way too fast when applying the black to the tile cliffs. If I had to do it over, I would do the same thing I've said over and over now. I would thin the black paint more and break it down into thinner coats. This is the rookie lesson that I learned with the airbrush. If I learned anything, it was thinner coats, thinner paint. It isn't the end of the world, but it did wind up making this brown painting step take forever when I got to the tiles. I didn't like how the ground looked so uniform when I did that first coat, so I mixed up some darker paint and randomly shot it all over to sort of blend it and mix it up a bit. The end result looked really great and gave some variety to the original brown. However, once the ground cover is applied, you can't tell there's any variation. Water looks blue in the real world, so we paint it blue on the board as well. Make sure the color you choose for this is much brighter than you want in the end, because when the resin is poured over it, it darkens it up quite a bit. On the ocean section, I just tried for an even coat and tried really hard to prevent any overspray on the cliffs or beaches. Here I mixed up some darker blue and sprayed it only on the outer edge of the ocean. This was designed to help give the illusion of depth and a slowly sloping coastline, and I think it turned out great. The effect gets a little bit minimized when the resin is poured over it, so if I had to do it over, I would choose a darker blue or maybe just spray it a little bit thicker on that super outside edge. On the lake, I made sure to paint it heavier in the middle to give the effect of depth, while keeping the blue thinner towards the edges so that the brown texture showed through a bit. This helps with that full illusion of depth. This is the magical part, in my opinion. Dry brushing can sometimes be intimidating for crafters that haven't done it before. I know I was extremely nervous the first time that I attempted this process. However, I'm here to tell you, after completing many of these types of projects, paint is super forgiving. If it doesn't look right, you can always redo the base color and start all over. Just go for it. Dry brushing is basically adding paint to your brush, then dabbing it on a paper towel until most of that paint is removed. Once you have very little paint on that brush, you simply swipe it or drag it over the highest surfaces of the rocks. Don't focus on one direction of stroke or one particular spot for too long. Just keep shifting location and direction. When you get to the end of a section, wait for it to dry, and then decide if you need to go back and touch up a few spots. In the end, the result is dramatic, and it is always my favorite part of a project. It sometimes feels like crafter cheating. The result often looks like it took much more time and skill than it really does. The finishing touch was dry brushing the beaches so that they stood out from the dirt above and the ocean below. Just be sure to feather color out on the edges so you don't create an unnatural harsh edge on the water side or the dirt side. Then, boom, paint is complete. Thanks again for joining us this week. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and follow us on social media to get all of our updates. If you're returning to the channel, welcome back, and thanks so much for the support. We really hope you enjoyed what we had for you today. If you did, make sure you like and comment down below. But that's all I've got for now, because I'm Pete, and this was Board Game Repack.